Looking for these better days.
It is Monday, October 20th. I'm Scott Seidenberg. Here's what you need to know to make today a better day. A very chalky NFL Week 7 Sunday yesterday. Will it continue with favorites here tonight on a Monday Night Football doubleheader? And in Major League Baseball, we have a Game 7. That's the best two words in sports, Game 7. Mackenzie Rivers with me here on this episode of Better Day, presented by FanDuel. Yes, Mac, we do have a Game 7 of the American League Championship Series tonight after the Blue Jays staved off elimination with a 6-2 win over the Mariners last night. But I want to start with football because it's a Monday morning quarterback episode here of Better Day. And your franchise, the San Francisco 49ers, were in action on Sunday Night Football last night, and they got themselves a victory 20-10 over the Atlanta Falcons in a game where the spread was really, really influenced, and I did not understand why. So last time you and I spoke last week, we went over this game. The 49ers were upwards of 2.5-point favorites. Well, yesterday morning, I guess a sizable wager was taken or a group maybe released a play. I don't know, but the books moved the game from the 49ers minus 2.5 down to minus 1.5, down to -1, eventually a pick'em for the majority of the day. And then before kickoff last night, more money came in on Atlanta. The Falcons actually closed as a 1-point favorite last night. One of the rare favorites that lost. Only two favorites lost yesterday, the Chargers and the Atlanta Falcons. What did you make of the line move and all the money going against your 49ers last night?
It was the narrative, to use a shorthand. It was another way of saying that it's momentum. When people say, well, there must be a reason people are betting against the 49ers, I want to be on the side of the people that have a reason for betting. But there's a reason the line was set where it was. Yes, the Niners were 2.5-point favorites only, despite being 3.5 or bigger favorites, in the summer and before the year. But they also had a lot of injuries to deal with. They didn't get more injured between the last time we talked and Monday. It was just followers betting with follower money. Ricky Pearsall didn't play, but we expected that, the 49ers wide receiver. And, of course, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner not coming back. But the Niners' defense couldn't have been as bad as it had been the last 3 games. Too much pride, too much talent elsewhere on the team. And 10 points, best defensive performance all the way since week 3 of the Niners season, and something to look forward to. We still have those 49ers NFC tickets.
Yeah.
They're not out of it yet.
And I talk about this all the time. Like, this is a week-to-week league, and the best way to be profitable is to fade the recency bias, and there was clearly a recency bias on the Atlanta Falcons coming off of their victory against the Buffalo Bills. Like, that is the Atlanta Falcons are the perfect example of the NFL being a week-to-week sport. They lost 30-0 to the Carolina Panthers, and then they beat the Buffalo Bills. And so last night going on the road, I just felt that it never made sense for them to be favored in the game. 49ers handle their business. Big night for Christian McCaffrey, 24 carries, 129 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Also had 7 catches for 72 yards. And for all the flaws of the 49ers, you mentioned it. You said our NFC tickets are still live. They are 5-2, Mackenzie. This is a 5-2 football team after 7 weeks.
And they may have the easiest schedule or second easiest schedule the rest of the way. They played their hard part of the schedule. Now they get, I guess next week's the Texans, but they have the Giants coming up, the Panthers, the Browns, the Titans, the Colts. Colts used to be on this list of easy wins to pick up later in the road. But I think there's 11 wins here, even despite how much worse they are on a full roster basis. They're still going to get Brock Purdy back. Mac Jones has played okay, but there's a couple times he rolled out, got outside the pocket where I thought Brock Purdy makes a big play here. Mac Jones makes a 7-yard play here. That's the difference, I think. So I still think the panic alarm is not on 100% for the $50 million we're paying for Brock Purdy.
That's exactly, and that's the other thing that I don't think a lot of people are talking about. So it's great. They're 5-2. Yeah, it hasn't looked great for them. They've done this without their starting quarterback. Wait till Brock Purdy is playing.
How are the Bengals doing without their starting
exactly?
Well, I guess they look better, but yeah.
No, that's true. Exactly. But let's see what happens when Brock Purdy comes back. and leads this team moving forward. Oh, and then when Brandon Ayuk comes back, oh, and when Jennings is not dealing with broken ribs, oh, and like Pearsall comes back. This is
George Kittle made a return, but not really.
Exactly.
He'll be back in full strength pretty soon.
Yeah, next week when it's National Tight Ends Day, that's when Kittle will have his touchdown.
He planned it all out.
Yes, exactly. He did plan it all out. This was his preseason game. Then next week's the full go. Okay, we have to talk about the Giants game against the Denver Broncos. Historic, Mackenzie. First off, if you had the under 41, I don't know what to tell you. This was a 19-0 game going into the fourth quarter.
What if you had the Broncos team total under?
I mean, a million things you could have had that you lost this game. The Broncos beat the Giants 33-32. The Broncos scored 33 points in the fourth quarter. It is the most points scored in a fourth quarter in NFL history when the team was scoreless through the first three quarters. They were shut out through three quarters, and then they scored 33 points in the fourth quarter. Even with all of that, Mackenzie, the Giants still should have won this game, because after the Giants scored the go-ahead touchdown with seconds remaining, under a minute remaining, their kicker, for the second time in the game last night, McAtamney, missed the extra point. And so instead of being up 33-30, they were up 32-30. And as we've seen this year in the NFL, it's a field goal. Getting into field goal range is automatic. It really is. Like, it is becoming such a certainty now that when you're watching these games and you're watching the teams go for the lead late, you're thinking about not whether or not they're going to score. You're thinking about how much time the other team has, because it's almost a foregone conclusion that the other team's going to get into field goal range. And that's what happened. Broncos got the football back with 40 seconds, and they easily march right down the field and get a chip shot field goal for the win.
Yeah, and Madden comes out every year, and the meta, as video gamers call it, changes. And sometimes defenses can do something, and sometimes defense is at such a state where it is in the current league right now in the real NFL, where you slide down if you're the Steelers and you're about to go in for a 3-point lead with 2 minutes and 10 seconds left. I said out loud, and I deleted it. I tweeted, I should say, and I deleted it because, I don't know, maybe it's too aggressive, it's too Madden-y. But if you slide down at the 12 and you're Freiermuth for the Steelers, you're down 3 with a lot of time left. You can run a few plays. You can score with, like, you're more likely to score and then win the game because they don't have enough time left than to score and just play defense anymore. And again, I mentioned this earlier last week on a podcast. Points per possession are higher than they've ever been before. Points aren't up because teams are playing slower. Teams are playing more methodical. There's less drives. But points per possession, the league has no idea how to stop these people in the last 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like, as soon as the kicker missed the extra point, I said the Giants are going to lose this football game. It was like, you knew.
By one. Yeah, I forgot about that. Wow.
You knew the Giants were gonna lose the football game. That's it. Like, and as somebody who holds a Giants season win ticket over 5.5, like, that gutted me yesterday, because that was the game. If the Giants win that game, I'm going to win this bet. The Giants lose yesterday, and now I'm not going to cash this bet, because you had to steal some wins, and they stole one against the Eagles. If they would have stolen another one against the Broncos, that would have been the other win here. They would have been 3-4. It would have been great. Anyway, the Broncos were a trench report play, so another straight up win for the trench report. Whatever. But we talked about the terrible situation that the Broncos were in. That it's crazy. Why was no one else talking about this? The same people that were all over the Steelers last week talking about how the Browns came back from London without the bye week and they're playing a team in Pittsburgh off of a bye. Well, the Broncos came back from London with no bye and played a Giants team coming off of a mini bye because they last played on Thursday. This was just as bad of a situation. This was always a spot to back the Giants. I'm so mad that, like, listen, I did it for the experiment, obviously, and that's the experiment of the 5-week quarter. I'm playing all the trench report teams to see how we do ATS. I'll give you the updates in just a moment, but the Giants were always the play here, Mackenzie. This was a terrible situational spot, and I want to give a shout-out to Brandon Anderson of the Action Network, who tweeted out an incredible trend, and I, quote tweeted it. yesterday, so you guys can hit me up on Twitter as you always do. But in the 19 games where a team has returned from London without the bye week, 17 of the 19 have either been tied or losing going into the fourth quarter. And so the Broncos were losing 19-0 going into the fourth quarter. It's just an unbelievable trend to look at these teams, how they struggle without the bye coming back from overseas.
It's very interesting because you might, if it was the opposite, you might be like, oh, well, these teams wear down because of attrition in the fourth quarter. But it's almost like they have to wake up. It's almost like literal jet lag before they realize that they're playing in a real football game. And it really been 7 quarters of sleep. If you look at the Broncos offense throughout the Jets 4 quarters, through 3 quarters versus the Giants, the 2 New York teams, really nothing. Bo Nix saved his career. He saved his legacy in year 2.
Did he? Did he save his legacy?
He won the game.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
You know something? It's take what you will away from the game, but the Broncos are 5-2. They're undefeated at home. They're a playoff team, and do we trust them in a big time matchup?
No, we don't. And the market downgraded them.
Yeah.
Despite the win, they were 5-point favorites hosting the Broncos next week. I mean, hosting the Cowboys. Now only 3-point favorites. They're even teams according to the market with the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, Dallas yesterday blows out Washington 44-22. Jaden Daniels goes down with a hamstring injury. He's going to undergo tests today, so that'll determine the severity of the injury, if in fact he's going to miss next week's game or not. If he does, it'll be Marcus Mariota getting the start once again for the Commanders. Dallas, they got CeeDee Lamb back, and he looked great. 5 catches, 110 yards, a touchdown. This is a team that if they played defensively the way they played yesterday, and how much of it was because they were winning early and the Commanders were one-dimensional and then Daniels gets knocked out. But if they played defensively like they played yesterday, their offense is so good that they're going to be able to sneak into the playoffs.
Yeah, they came into the Week 7 card having the number 1 points per game offense and the number 31 points per game defense. Well, one of those things stayed consistent, and that would be the one that Brian Schottenheimer is in charge of. Dak Prescott with another 88 QBR, best metrics in the league so far this year. Jaden Daniels, by the way, market says he's not going to be out there. At least that's how I'm reading it. The Chiefs were 5.5-point favorites hosting the Commanders. They are now up to 11.5 as markets reopen. So probably no Jaden Daniels, we think.
I would think so. Okay, let's talk about the Colts beating the Chargers 38-24. And I got to give credit because, Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman tried something very, very interesting yesterday, Mackenzie. They're down 14 points and get the football back with 12 minutes left in the game. And so they proceeded to go on a 21-play, 10-minute drive that came away with 0 points. I mean, just an incredible job of milking the clock, really. Like they did a great job of making sure that there was going to be limited possessions and the game was going to end. There was no urgency. It doesn't matter that you were down 14 points, 21 plays, 67 yards, 9 minutes and 15 seconds, just milking that clock.
Well, there's an unknown strategy that shout out to Grandmaster Ben Feingold does in chess, which is when you play so boring that your opponent falls asleep, you reach over and you knock over his king, and you win the game. That was the Chargers strategy. It was a bold strategy, Cotton.
Yeah.
But down 14 in the fourth, taking a 10-minute 0-point drive didn't work out for him.
It's unbelievable. Like I'm watching this and I'm thinking to myself, like, what are you doing? Snap the football, or what are you? Why are you running the ball, or why are you throwing it dink and dunk? Like
5-yard pass,
like attack down the field,
0-yard pass.
Like, what are you doing? It was so crazy that they 21 plays in 10 minutes. Like you're down 14. What are you doing? It's embarrassing. Listen, I didn't trust this team coming into the season. I hated this team coming into the season. And
they could have lost to the Dolphins. They could have lost 4 straight games, including to the Dolphins.
Yes.
That's this Chargers team.
And I'm being proven right. I mean, this team is just, there's something wrong. There's a lot wrong, actually. Herbert's stats look good. He threw for 420 yards and 3 touchdowns, but I mean, they gave up 3 rushing touchdowns to Jonathan Taylor. Shout out the Trench Report. This was a Trench Report mismatch with the Colts over the Chargers. And when you have the identified Trench Report mismatches like it had here with this one, it makes sense when you see Jonathan Taylor go off for 94 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Taylor's now even money to win Offensive Player of the Year.
He's been the best running back all season. He's been the best. He really has. The other late afternoon game yesterday was the Packers coming from behind to defeat the Cardinals 27-23. Another valiant effort from Jacoby Brissett. Packers had no answer for Trey McBride, the Cardinals tight end, and Green Bay gets the win. They score late and they get the win, but another performance where you're sitting here, you're looking at Jordan Love, you're looking at the Packers, and you're thinking, are they going through the motions, or is this just an average football team?
Here's the thing about Matt LaFleur coming from the Shanahan tree, and he's a guy that was closer to Mike Shanahan when he was working with the then Redskins, now Commanders. You have a lot of people from there. Is they didn't lose the game. Like, I know Matt LaFleur well enough to know he's like, what are you talking about? It was efficient passing game, completed 70% of our passes, ran the ball 23 times, and it comes down to the other team had 1 turnover and they didn't. So this is more of a defensive focused team than I think we think. This is more of a don't make mistakes focused team. And that's what they did, and that's what they get a win for. Micah Parsons breaks out of his little slump, 3 sacks. I still think they are the team to beat in the NFC. Maybe the Eagles with their big bounce back, but I don't think there's a big separation between the Lions, Packers, and Eagles as far as who should be favored to win the NFC.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Right now, the Packers are the slight favorite to win the NFC North, but that's because the Lions haven't played yet. So if the Lions win tonight, those odds might change. But right now up on FanDuel, it is Green Bay minus 115, Detroit plus 155. If Detroit gets a win tonight, which they are favored to do so, maybe those odds shorten up just a bit. We'll get to that Monday Night Football doubleheader coming up here in just a couple of minutes. Panthers beat the Jets, McKenzie, 13-6. The Jets fall to 0-7. Justin Fields gets benched. No word from the Jets and from Aaron Glenn about a decision on the quarterback for their next game. I don't see why Justin Fields should continue to play quarterback for this football team, but you know what? It is what it is. I look at the Jets, and tell me if you agree with this. The Jets, you will not find a team more so than the Jets that plays games where they are within striking distance, yet they're never in the game. Yep. Every game the Jets play, it seems, they are within 1 to 2 possessions, so they are within legit striking distance. But yet you watch the games and you would think they are dominated, and they are never in any game. This was a 1-possession loss. They lost 13-6 against the Broncos. They lost 13-11 against the Dolphins. They lost 27-21, 29-27 to the Bucks, 34-32 to the Steelers. At no point in any of those games did I think they were going to win. Maybe in week 1 against the Steelers before Xavier Gipson fumbled the kickoff return. That's it. At no point in any of those other games did I think that they were going to win the football game.
Well, Justin Fields may have played his last game as quarterback, and he probably – I think you say, like, what's the reason we should play Justin Fields next week? The counter argument, what's the reason we're going to play Tyrod Taylor? Well, now there is a reason, because at a certain point – you don't have potential. You're not showing your fans anything. So the reason to play Tyrod Taylor is just to save face, because this is embarrassing at this point. And I think Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback of all time, but I'm on an island thinking he's much better than Peyton Manning. It wasn't like they were both good and Tom Brady was a little bit better. He was much better. And why is because in these close games, you just got to be a little bit better than your opponent. And if Peyton Manning came back into the league, I swear I have a point here. I'll take it full circle. If Peyton Manning came back into the league and won 50 games in a row, he'd have a worse winning percentage than Tom Brady, because it's not the stats difference between the two quarterbacks. It's the fact that one made all the right decisions. Well, Justin Fields makes all the wrong decisions, all of these close games. It's like, well, eventually he's going to be sacked or fumble, or he's not going to come through. It feels like it's mostly who's at the helm, who's going to get us to the finish line type situation. They're not good, but they are better than 0-7.
Is Aaron Glenn one and done?
I, man, he's 3-4 ATS. So like you said, he's competitive in some of these games, but the trend line, the fact that they're went from scoring 20 points a game to 11 points a game to 6 points a game. I could see someone wanting some blood in New York. What do you think? You know the market better than I do.
I think he's one and done. I think that we have seen too many instances of him being over his head as a head coach. He might be an incredible defensive mind. He might be an incredible defensive coordinator. He might be an incredible motivator of men. But
He might not be.
Yeah, sure. But the ineptitude for the clock management, for the managing of the game, I mean, that the sequence at the end of the first half last week against the Broncos was absolutely embarrassing. There's other moments in the games that are absolutely embarrassing that leave you scratching your head. I just think that some coaches are, and this is not, I don't mean to be disrespectful to Aaron Glenn. Some coaches are much better as coordinators, not head coaches, right? It takes a certain type of mentality. It takes a certain type of leader to be a head coach, because you're more of a manager of the entire program as opposed to just being a football guy that focuses on calling the plays and a certain teaching aspect of the game. I think Aaron Glenn might be just a tremendous, and we saw this with Rex Ryan too. Rex Ryan's one of the greatest defensive minds we've had in football, but he was not a good head coach because there was moments in the game where he struggled, because he focused too much on the defensive side of the football. That's what when Schottenheimer was there, it was like he used to say, "Hey, Schottenheimer, you do your offense. I'm going to do the defense." No. You're the head coach. You're supposed to be involved in everything, right? So I think Aaron Glenn might be that guy.
I think the biggest gripe I would have for him is you have to be, as you mentioned, a manager, a coach of coaches, and the offense hasn't gotten better. And I know they have a new play caller in there, came over from the Lions, was a very attractive guy to a lot of teams as far as a play caller. And the fact that you don't give him easy options if you're Justin Fields. You don't give him something to just get going. I think that more than the play than the time management thing. I was thinking about this today. I got up early to watch the London game. Obviously, it's a different situation. The Rams are up 21-0, but they run 2 times to end the half, the Rams, and then they take a knee. Like a lot of teams do that. The Jets could have saved so much face because they ran out the clock too, but it looked like they were trying.
Yeah.
If they just looked like they were trying, and the Titans did the same thing. They got to the midfield, about 20 seconds left, and they just took a knee and they just said it was over. But the fact that they looked like they were rushing to the line to do something, and then it just looked like a disheveled, more than the actual events that occurred, the play-by-play events, they look like a disheveled unit, and that's what gets you fired as a head coach.
Yeah. Let's move on. The Eagles beat the Vikings 28-22, and Minnesota Brian Flores might have figured out how to stop the tush push. Did you see multiple times with the defensive lineman laying on the ground right in front of the center? I thought that was.
I did not catch that. Enlighten me.
It caused a false start or penalty on the Philadelphia Eagles. It was just what they did was they lined up the one of a defensive player on all fours sideways. Okay, they lined him up sideways in front of the center. And it was really interesting because I feel like the Eagles didn't know what to do with the moment at that point. Jalen Hurts did pick up a yard on a 4th and 1 play, so he did get it. And Jason Kelce actually went on Twitter and said, quote, "It's an interesting strategy. Create a log jam at the point, then the other DTs jumped over. It almost worked. I'd line up with an unbalanced line and just make the guard the center of the push, though. I do like seeing innovative strategies to stop it," end quote.
That's brilliant. There's so many chess moves about it, because you're right. Like, yeah, if you create a force that cannot be moved at the front, that is a big problem for the tush push. But you can just go a yard to the right, but then you're deviating already from this plan that's been working at a 90% clip. But yeah, it kind of is a good argument for why it shouldn't be banned. The fact that we've had 100 years of the NFL and they're still not exactly sure about how to do everything. It's kind of a good feature of the sport. By the way, Jalen Hurts is back. Best performance of his career, maybe, or at least of the season by far. 95 QBR, only 4 incomplete passes. Both Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown have best games of the season.
Yeah.
So we poured dirt on the Eagles a little bit too early.
Yeah,
even if the tush push is now figured out.
Big offensive performance there from Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. Also a big offensive performance from the Kansas City Chiefs and a big defensive performance from the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs win 31-0 over the Raiders. Cashed the Rashee Rice anytime touchdown. I wish I would have bet 2 touchdowns, but this was I tweeted out yesterday, the squarest, most obvious, easiest cash that you're going to find here. Rashee Rice playing his first game back from suspension for the Chiefs. They talked about wanting him to score. They talked about wanting to force feed him, and they did. And they got him the ball close to the end zone, and he scored 2 touchdowns. And this is now a scary thing, Mackenzie, because that was the Chiefs team at full strength. You had Rice, Rice, Worthy, Hollywood Brown, Juju even on the field, Travis Kelce, Pacheco, Kareem Hunt, like Noah Gray. This was the full-strength Chiefs team, and they looked unstoppable yesterday against the Raiders. Now, the Raiders are pathetic in their own right, absolutely pathetic. Geno Smith is just he got replaced by Kenny Pickett, and maybe it's time.
Do you think it's Kenny Pickett time going forward?
I think it has to be. I think it has to be Kenny Pickett time. He is just inefficient at the quarterback position right now. I think you have to go Kenny Pickett.
I mean, what do you have to lose? 2-5, the season's over. Yep. But the story is the Chiefs. Even though they beat the Raiders, and that comes with its own asterisk, they are the best team in the league, according to the market. They are Super Bowl favorites, and it's not even close. Currently 5-1 to win it all.
Yep.
The Bills, who have an easier schedule, are plus 750. And then the Packers, Lions, Rams, that whole cohort comes in at 8-9 to 1. But no one's better than the Chiefs. We kind of threw dirt on them when they didn't have their weapons. Well, they have their weapons now. The best offense in the league.
And we found a new trick play yesterday from the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know if you saw this. This was incredible. So it was
the false start one.
No, yes, when they faked drawing the Raiders offsides. So it was a short yarded situation. They line up.
This isn't working. It never works.
Exactly. It's amazing. So for those listening that might not be aware, they go to the line of scrimmage like teams do to try and do the hard count and get the defense to jump off sides. So Mahomes is doing the hard count, and then Mahomes stands up from under center and says, "This bleeping never works."
You could hear him on the broadcast. Yes. He said something Andy.
Yeah, and
Andy.
Yeah, and Tony.
First of all, what a nice coach. He's on first name basis with
Andy. Tony Romo's laughing on the broadcast, right? Nance is like, Tony, but he's laughing because Mahomes is like, this bleeping never works. Ugh.
By the way, Tony Romo, who gets a lot of credit for pointing things out before they happen, was totally fooled by Patrick Mahomes here. He's like, oh, well, they're obviously not going for it. In fact, he's yelling at the coach that they're not going for it.
Exactly. And then when you think that, it's just Mahomes, he's frustrated, he's like, it doesn't work. We're not drawing him off sides. They snap the ball and hand it off, and then they get the first down. Incredible. Great stuff.
It might have worked without it, but it was a lot more, a lot nicer of a spectacle with it.
Patriots beat the Titans 31-13. A big win for the Pats, who are in first place in the AFC East. Drake May gives the game ball to Mike Vrabel after the game as they celebrate with their coach. And the dead cat bounce, the new fired coach boost, did not happen here with the Titans, as they just are not not.
Here's the thing about that. The dead cat bounce is a lie. It's perpetrated by the media. It never was a thing. I have the numbers since 2000. More often than not, after you fire your coach, you lose ATS. It's not a thing. However, it is a thing that those games go over. Now, 29 overs and 18 losses in these scenarios. And it makes a lot of sense. Mike McCoy pounding up with Cam Ward. It was all about doing something fun, doing something different. They got off to a 10-3 lead. That's the Titans offense. They actually showed signs of life. The Patriots, by the way, 2 incomplete passes, 96 QBR, 22 for 24 as a team. They might be a juggernaut. They might be contenders in the AFC East.
Drake May's good. I mean, he really is. He really is good. And they finally got Ramondre Stevenson broke out in a big way yesterday against the Titans. Next game, let's talk about. I'm going to take a victory lap here. There was a lot of things that I got wrong yesterday, but this was probably the best weather handicap I've ever had. Browns weather game against the Dolphins. We gave out 7 plays in the prop market in this game. We went 6 of 7. My same game parlay that I put together missed by one leg, and really it missed by 8 yards. Okay. So with the wind gusts, with the rain, with the Browns defense in the trench report, all that stuff, the prop plays that we gave out that we played in this game, and I talked about it on VSiN, talked about it on this pod, gave it out on the website, all this stuff. It was both quarterbacks to go under their passing attempts, both quarterbacks to go under their passing yardage, Quinshon Judkins to go over his rushing attempts, Quinshon Judkins to go over his rushing yards, and Quinshon Judkins anytime touchdown. Well, 6 out of 7, my friends. The only loss was Judkins over his rushing yardage prop. His yardage prop was 91.5 yards. He finishes 25 carries for 84 yards and 3 touchdowns. So 84 yards, not 91.5. So we lost a potential monster same game parlay there. But what a game script. And for Judkins, 3 touchdowns. I had so much FOMO yesterday, Mackenzie, watching this game because as someone who identified Judkins to break out and have a big game here against the Dolphins, and I'm not saying it was just me, like everybody did. The Dolphins have the worst run defense in the NFL. But with the weather and stuff, I said he's going to score a touchdown. I bet the anytime touchdown. It's like minus 110, minus 115. And then I looked at the 2 touchdowns, and I saw that it was only plus 250. And I said, that's ridiculous. Like,
Right.
At least it should be plus 300. Like, the best guy for touchdowns in the league is, you would think is like a Christian McCaffrey or Kyron Williams, right? Those guys, like McCaffrey's prop last night was plus 300 for 2 touchdowns. So the market was really baking in all of the circumstances with the weather and whatnot to shorten the price on Judkins. So I didn't bet because I was too price sensitive. I didn't bet the plus 250 because I thought it should have been higher. And then I looked at the 3 touchdowns. And I said, you know something? Why don't I take a sprinkle on 3 touchdowns for Judkins? But then again, it wasn't priced accordingly. It was only at like 20-1. 23-1 was the best that I saw. You should be getting like 30-1 on these props, or at least like 28-1 the majority of the time. So they clearly were baking it in. I didn't play it, and I have immediate FOMO because Judkins scored 3 touchdowns yesterday.
I think that's pretty instructive because Judkins is a guy that many people may not have heard of until this week when, like you said, everyone had him as their number 1 fantasy guy because of the matchup. But when he's priced as the best back in the league, essentially, which is saying he has the shortest odds of anybody in this market, that's a big statement by the book. And the weather probably had a lot to do with that. I know algorithms figure out a lot of these prices. Could have been bettors, could have been other adjustments, but it seems like they did factor in there's a chance no one's going to be able to throw 5 yards downfield. That was the game predicted, and that was the game we got.
Yep, 31-6, and I am going to make another prediction. And I do not have any inside information, okay? But when you are listening to this podcast at whatever time on Monday, it releases at 6 a.m. Eastern time, right? So if you're listening to it in 6 a.m. Eastern time, great. Good morning. How you doing? If you're listening to it later in the day, there's a chance that when you're listening to this podcast, Mike McDaniel is not the head coach of the 49ers. I think
he will definitely not be a head coach of the 49ers.
I mean, excuse me, a head coach of the
He might be the coordinator by the 49ers by the time you're listening to this.
That's where I was going to go next, that he's going to rejoin the 49ers staff as an offensive assistant. Mike McDaniel's getting fired here on Monday. I don't have any inside information. I thought maybe this would happen at the end of the season. I think after a loss like that, where, you actually benched Tua, and oh, by the way, it was not Zach Wilson who was the backup quarterback yesterday. They elevated Quinn Ewers from their practice squad to serve as the backup quarterback yesterday, and Quinn Ewers actually got into the game to replace Tua. I think that was a signal from the general manager. I think it was a signal from the organizational high-ups that they want to take a look towards the future. And I think that we are going to get a look towards the future starting now where Mike McDaniel is going to be out of a job.
It might be a total clean house situation because Mike McDaniel's saving grace, if he wanted to form an argument to why he should still be the Dolphins head coach, he is now 29-29 as a head coach. So he's probably going to end the year under 500. But you could say Tua was this distressed asset who you drafted number 5 in the draft that wasn't worth anything, and I made him a $50 million quarterback. Well, now he's a $50 million quarterback that probably should be a backup somewhere because this was his worst game. It's what people often criticized as far as when everything's not perfect, not that Hawaii breeze nice to make it weird. But it's when you have Tua Tagovailoa and you've seen these amazing offensive performances, 70 points, what is consistent? Everyone else is doing all the work. It's because of a great offensive line. It's because Tyreek Hill, he doesn't help you move. He doesn't raise your floor, and that's what we're seeing in broad daylight. And they probably just say, well, if he's not raising our floor and we don't think he has that high of a ceiling, he's gone. And if he's gone, why do we have Mike McDaniel? And if Mike McDaniel and Tua didn't work, the GM's probably got to go too. This is probably a blow it up situation.
I can see it happening. So don't be surprised if you're listening to this pod and he is out of a job. Elsewhere, the Bears beat the Saints 26-14. The Saints were actually an attractive underdog play yesterday. I had them plus the points. A lot of people had them plus the points, just because the Bears may be a little bit overvalued after their win last week. And I didn't see anything from the Bears. I mean, DeAndre Swift had a nice performance, right? Over 100 rushing yards. Kyle Monangai found the end zone. So they were able to run against a bad Saints team. I just thought it said more about the Saints than it did about the Chicago Bears. I came away from that performance once again, like Caleb Williams, 15 of 26, 172 yards and a touchdown. Like, he still doesn't do it for me. A couple of fumbles, missed snaps. Like, this was a game where they were fortunate they were playing at home against the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, 4th straight win, and I'd say 3 of them have been very not impressive, including this one. And Caleb Williams probably had his worst game of the season from a metric perspective. You know, QBR under 20. It just seems like the Saints kind of got used to losing, and they were just going to step on their foot as many times as necessary to make this an easy home win for the Bears. Mm-hmm. They are at Baltimore. They are catching 6.5. I know we don't like Baltimore. I know they're 1-5, but I am looking for opportunities to fade the Bears. Still, I agree with you. I think this is just the Saints blowing it more than the Bears showing anything.
Well, Lamar's going to be back for that game. So, I mean, the Ravens are about to go on an absolute tear right now. So that is a spot. And then in the London game early in the morning, it was the Rams beating the Jaguars 35-7. Another bad performance from Trevor Lawrence. And Travis Hunter. Hey, how about Travis Hunter? 101 yards receiving and a touchdown. But the Jags are just not they're not a playoff team. They're not going to win that division. The Colts are going to win that division. Jags are not a playoff team. We'll see what the future is for Trevor Lawrence and this, Liam Cohn and this team. But the Rams just, I mean, they outclassed them. And Devontae Adams, imagine this same game parlay, Mackenzie. If you went Devontae Adams to score 3 touchdowns, parlayed with Devontae Adams to go under his receptions prop and under his yardage prop. He had 5 catches for 35 yards and 3 touchdowts. I mean, what is he?
He's a specialist.
What is he, a tight end?
Exactly. I mean, he is the tight end guy. That's what Aaron Rodgers always, the red zone guy. Yeah. That's what Aaron Rodgers would always talk about. His like 1-2 move, his little crossover dribble in the paint in the red zone. That's what worked out at the goal line a couple times. What a performance by Matthew Stafford. 5 touchdowns on the international. I was thinking about this. We saw how good older quarterbacks do on Thursday night with the Icy Hot Bowl. Joe Flacco and Aaron Rodgers having great games. We see how much better older quarterbacks have done in international games. I think the weirder the situation, the more experience helps you. Trevor Lawrence has been to London a couple times, but he looked much more skittish than a future Hall of Famer in Stafford.
So before we do our Monday Night Football same game parlay, let's just recap. Trench Report goes 3-2 this week, straight up with the outright win by the dog in the Colts beating the Chargers, the Broncos beating the Giants somehow, and the Browns destroying the Miami Dolphins. The Commanders lose to the Dallas Cowboys, but Jaden Daniels is knocked out of that game. How much can we take away from that? And then the Steelers losing to the Bengals. What are you going to do? Thursday night. Road, Tomlin, all that stuff. The rushing advantages I thought looked very good. Carolina over the Jets, the Colts certainly over the Chargers, Packers over the Cardinals. Just a couple of these mismatches. But anyway, 3-2 straight up now. So if we're looking at the straight up records in the 3 weeks that we have made this public, We are now 4-1 in week 1, 4-1 in week 2, 3-2 in week 3. So that is 11-4 straight up, Mackenzie, in the 3-week sample size of just the straight up records here of the Trench Report. Obviously, the ATS numbers are going to be 3-2 as well because the dog won outright and those favorites lost. Actually, no, 2-3 because the favorite that did win in the Broncos obviously did not cover whatsoever. So, yep. But again, it's not going to identify ATS. We're not doing this for ATS stuff. We're trying to identify mismatches, and I think the value is, like we see with the Colts over the Chargers, this is where you identify the value, where you can look at the Trench Report and you can see, well, listen, the Colts are underdogs in this game, but they have a clear running mismatch over the Chargers. A clear running advantage, and guess what happened? Taylor runs for 3 touchdowns, and the Colts win outright. So
it begs the question of, are we sure the Chargers are a better team than the Colts or as good of a team?
No, they're not.
And no real numbers would tell you that, but the Trench Report helps you beg that question. Like, for example, the Broncos, they have the massive mismatch, but we know that. That's why they're 8-point favorites.
Exactly.
But the situation, which is not in the Trench Report, is why you might want to stay off coming back from London.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think there's some good value to be gleaned from the weekly Trench Report.
Of course, and it's up every Wednesday up on betterday.com. Now, we have a Monday Night Football doubleheader tonight, Mackenzie, and it starts with the Tampa Bay Bucks at the Detroit Lions. Currently up on FanDuel, the Lions are a 5.5-point favorite. They are 6 most spots in the market, so a better line here at FanDuel, getting the 5.5. The second game of the doubleheader is the Texans at the Seahawks, and Seattle a 3-point favorite up on FanDuel. Total of 41.5 in that second game, high total of 53.5 in the Bucks-Lions game. And I'm going to throw out a trend for you, Mackenzie. I know it sounds square to bet on the Lions here, but first off, week 7 was just a square week. Yesterday, favorites went 9-2 straight up. Okay, the only losses were the Colts and the 49ers. But if you count the 49ers as the favorite from earlier in the week,
right.
and you could have even had a better number because earlier in the week the Panthers were favored over the Jets, but a game closed as a pick'em. So really, any way you slice it, favorites dominated yesterday. But Dan Campbell after a loss, this is what you have to look at. Since the 2022 season, since the start of the 2022 season, the Lions under Dan Campbell are 12-4 straight up in ATS after a loss. When they are playing at home after a loss in that same time span, they are 9-2 straight up in ATS. They are covering the spread, by the way, by 12 points per game in those games. Lions are angry, man. They're angry from last week. They're angry at the NFL. I like the Lions to win and cover this game.
What if I told you that the greatest coach in NFL history, by the Vegas standard of against the spread record, is Dan Campbell, who is over 60% in his 100 games as a head coach? No one is even close. Brian Flores, by the way, is second on that list. Maybe he will get another shot one day as a head coach. But I think in Dan we trust is gonna do you better than most other betting strategies. I just think at home, coming off a loss with Tampa being beat up, they don't really need the game. I don't think it's square. Well, I don't think it's square enough to get me off it.
Yeah.
I like the Lions here.
Okay, so to build our same game parlay here for the Monday Night Football doubleheader, why don't we start with the Detroit Lions -5.5 as leg number 1?
I like it. Like you said, 6 in some spots. We're getting a little value already.
Yes. Okay, leg number 2, I think, how do we want to attack the Tampa Bay Bucks here, or maybe attack the Detroit Lions? Because I think that obviously if we're looking for a negative correlation here, that's a better way to jack up a payout. So with the banged up secondary here for the Lions, and also Branch suspended as well, so you have injuries on the defense, you have a suspension on the defense, I feel like this could be a good performance for some pass catchers here from the Tampa Bay Bucks. The problem is with the injury report being so uncertain, we know Mike Evans is going to play. We don't know about Ibuka. There's no props up on the Johnson & Johnson boys in Tez and Cam. What about going Cade Otton, tight end for the Bucks, over 37.5 receiving yards?
I think this is a shootout. I think it's a low total at 53.5. It doesn't really matter who Baker Mayfield's weapons are. He has been finding them. So who's left? Otten. All right, let's go with him. Also, Baker's passing yards, averaging 257 on the year. They're setting it only at 244. Again, I like a little fireworks. And if they're down the whole game like we expect, because they're not going to cover 6 points, then there's going to have to be thrown from behind a lot.
All right, let's do this then. Let's forget about the player props. Forget about Otten in there. Leg number 1, Lions -5.5. Leg number 2, Baker Mayfield over 1.5 passing touchdowns.
I was thinking that too, because that's directly anti-correlated, because usually you score a touchdown that helps you win the game and cover the spread.
Yep.
But we don't think they're going to score 14 points. We think they're going to score, 25 points.
Yes.
They got to get them from somewhere.
Okay, so those two legs together are plus 243. Now, if we want to go ahead and do a third leg in this game to kind of jack up this payout, what would you want to do? If you just put the over, it doesn't juice it up a little bit. It doesn't juice it up.
What about? And this is very anti-correlated.
Mm-hmm.
But Jamar Gibbs under 61.5 rushes. I feel like the best way to attack the Bucs right now is just through the air versus on the ground versus getting in Vita Vea's face. I just feel like this is a shootout on Monday Night Football, so maybe less rushing yards.
I don't hate it. The problem with it is that, he's got home run potential, and it's just one run that he
doesn't need a lot of volume necessarily. Yeah.
Exactly. Here's, I'll give you an over here. Sean Tucker over 13.5 rushing yards.
Who?
So there's going to be maybe that's going to obscure, but we know that there's no Bucky Irving in this game, so it's going to be Rashad White and Sean Tucker as the two backs. We know that Tucker is more of the bruising in between the tackles back here, but Rashad White could just be getting a lot of receptions out of the backfield, and maybe they hand the ball off to Tucker more. It's at 13.5 his rushing yards.
So last week he has 6 carries for 25 yards. I think that might be just the market not catching up. They don't really know what to do with him, because last week was the only week that he was playing without Bucky Irving.
Yeah. If you put that in the 3-leg parlay, it takes it from plus 243 to plus 619.
I like that.
So
nearly triples it.
Okay, so here
now we're cooking with gas.
So here we go. For the first game, part of our Monday Night Football Super Same Game Parlay, courtesy of the FanDuel Sportsbook, the basic 2-leg version, Lions -5.5, Baker Mayfield over 1.5 passing touchdowns. You add the third leg in that's plus 243. You add the third leg, Sean Tucker, over 13.5 rushing yards. You're now at plus 619 for game number 1. Let's move on to game number 2, and that is the Seahawks hosting the Houston Texans. Seahawks are a 3-point favorite. This total is at 41.5. Where do you want to go first with this game?
I kind of like the under here. I kind of feel the opposite. The total is really low, but the Texans have had a top 5 defense and a bottom 5 offense, and the Seahawks have had a pretty good offense, but their defense has really been catching up steam. Just held the Jaguars to 12 points.
Okay.
I guess I feel most confident in the Seahawks defense doing well at home here versus a bad Texans offensive line.
Okay, so let's go with leg number 1. We'll go under 41.5. Okay. And leg number 2, we need something anti-correlated, so we got to go an over with somebody to get
JSN going to be offensive player of the year one day. Going to maybe have a big Monday night showing. I mean, that's definitely anti-correlated to go with a wide receiver over. But I'm just thinking out loud here. What do you think?
I was thinking to go with a Sam Darnold over 1.5 passing touchdowns.
Similar to my JSN theory.
But just the Sam Darnold prop alone is plus 134 to over 1.5 passing touchdowns, which is crazy. What about passing yardage? Darnold's at 222.5, Stroud's at 227.5.
What do you think? I don't really have any particular opinion about those, to be honest.
Yeah, JSN receiving yards is at 86.5. Nico Collins is at 74.5. Cooper Kupp's at 37.5. I'm trying to think, if there's who do we like? Because we have to go an over on somebody because we really want the negative correlation here.
What about Cooper Cup over? I feel like who's that? Stingley, #1 Texans cornerback.
Yep.
Maybe he has a good performance against JSN. Who I know I just told you recommended him, but he's the popular one. Maybe we go with one of the other wide receivers.
It's not a bad thought. It's not a bad thought. So, but then again, JSN is a guy who lines up in the slot a lot. So,
He does.
are they going to, are they going to have Stingley shadow JSN? Like, how's D'Amico going to play that out? Is he going to say, hey, we're going to shadow, or is Stingley just going to stay on the outside and then JSN
He
lines
stays
up
on
in
the
slot?
side is generally how they play it in Houston.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So maybe JSN again going back full circle.
So Derek Stingley talked actually about the possibility of shadowing JSN. And he said, if any corner is in that situation, it shouldn't change how you play. Like, you shouldn't change how you play, technique, eyes, feet. Make sure you take care of yourself first. Because that's, I guess he was talked about if he was going to shadow JSN or not, potentially shadowing JSN. So he's basically saying you don't change the way you play if you're going to shadow a player.
Right, you don't let them dictate what I do. I stand right here is what I do.
Man, that's a good point. Maybe they do. Maybe it is. Maybe they are playing coy. Maybe they do shadow here. Let's look at the receptions prop. Maybe it's a Cooper Cup receptions game. Let's look at that. Cooper Cup receptions. Okay. Let's see. I don't want his alternate numbers. I just want his regular numbers here. Player total receptions. Cooper Cup 3.5. Let's go over 3.5 receptions.
I like it. They keep everything in front of you in Houston. Bend but don't break defense, just like D'Amico Ryans used to do for the 49ers when he was the DC there. And Cooper Cup used to have a lot of big games against those Niners defenses.
So that makes the two-leg portion of this, the under 41.5 and Cup over 3.5, plus 207. Okay, if we parlay that with the basic 2 legs of Lions minus 5.5 and Baker over 1.5 touchdowns, we are at plus 954. Now, if you add in the Sean Tucker aspect of this, which was the third leg of the game number 1 same game parlay, then instead of it being plus 954 on the 4-leg super parlay, it jacks it up to plus 2108. So can we get one more leg on the second game to give us the 3-leg super same game parlay, courtesy of our friends over at the FanDuel Sportsbook?
You know, it's going to go 5 out of 6 if we do this.
But that's why we give the people fun options. That's
why we give people options.
We give people options here. Here's what I'm going to go with for this.
Yeah,
I'm going to go CJ Stroud over 227.5 passing yardage, because it's completely it's just it flips the script on everything. That makes this go from, because if you do the Sam Darnold one, it makes it plus 475 from plus 207. But if you do Stroud, it makes it plus 611. So let's do that. Now we're at plus 5017, plus 5017 on the 6-leg parlay.
50-1.
50-1.
Let's go.
Just a little sprinkle. 50-1. All right, that's going to do it for our same game parlay construction here for the Monday Night Football doubleheader, courtesy of our friends over at the FanDuel Sportsbook. Before we wrap, Mackenzie, let's talk about the baseball. The Blue Jays win 6-2 last night over the Mariners, so they force a Game 7 tonight in Toronto. Incredible trends that pointed to the Blue Jays yesterday. I looked up the history of in the playoffs. If in game number 6 of the postseason series, right, and you are the home team that lost game number 5, so game 6 of the playoff series, you are home, but you lost game number 5 on the road. Those teams going into last night, 16-5 straight up, going back to 2004. Now it's 17-5 straight up. But now I wanted to throw this at you. In game number 7,
best 2 words in sports,
you're the home team coming off of that win in game number 6. Same time span since 2004. You're only 6-4 straight up.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
So It's an incredible spot to be in game 6 for those home teams. Not so much an incredible historic spot for these teams to be in game number 7. Odds courtesy of the FanDuel Sportsbook right now. Blue Jays minus 122, total of 7.5. Shane Bieber on the mound for the Blue Jays. George Kirby goes for the Mariners, but all hands on deck, game 7 scenario. Any thoughts on this matchup?
Surprised to see, I guess I shouldn't be, that the Blue Jays are favored. It feels like the Mariners series to win this whole time.
Yeah. I like the Mariners tonight.
Yeah, I don't think the home, and the numbers support it. The home field doesn't mean much here.
No.
I think because there's just so many nerves, there's so many it's so cagey. Any double elimination game, any mistake can end your season. I feel like it might not even be helpful to be at home in that particular scenario.
Plus, like the Mariners didn't have to use Munoz last night. They have an ace up their sleeve in Brian Wu, who is available out of the bullpen for them here tonight. Meanwhile, the Blue Jays did put Louis Varland in the game. They did have Jeff Hoffman in the game last night. So, and Hoffman pitched 2 innings last night. So I think the Mariners are the spot here. You get a little bit of plus money price here on the Mariners. I think they win this game 7 and advance to the World Series to take on the Dodgers, where they will be sacrificial lambs to the Los Angeles Dodgers. Yes.
It's so perfectly set up for a game 1 laying the 1.5 with the Dodgers.
Oh,
Both teams coming off a game 7 thriller. The Dodgers just swept. They're at home. Ohtani's the greatest player we've ever seen with our eyes. Give me Dodgers in game 1, whoever wins this.
Hypothetical matchups currently available up on FanDuel. Blue Jays, the Dodgers would be minus 215 over the Blue Jays in the World Series. And if it were the Mariners, the Blue Jays would be minus 200 over the Mariners in the World Series. So the market is actually telling us who to bet tonight.
Right, exactly.
Because they're telling us that the Mariners would be, lesser of a dog. Yeah. So let's go with the Mariners tonight at the plus money price. This is an exciting week for you, Mackenzie, because the NBA season tips off tomorrow. That is crazy. Yep, Tuesday night NBA. The action will get started with a doubleheader on NBC. Oh, my goodness.
Round Ball Rock is back.
Oh, my goodness. It's going to be fun to watch. Rockets at the Thunder, Warriors at the Lakers. We will talk about those games tomorrow and get the best bets from Mackenzie Rivers for those games coming up tomorrow. You can follow Mackenzie on Twitter at Mackin Rivers. You can follow me at Scott's On Air. And here's hoping you make today and every day a better day.